Welcome to the Executive Coaching Podcast, where Executive Coach Alicia Cowan will discuss leadership topics and coaching solutions to tackle the most difficult problems that keep you from leading your team to success.
Hi there, friends. It's Alicia Cowan, and today on this episode, we are going to talk about celebrating wins. I'm recording this in December of 2022, but this is going to air in 2023. So we're going to look back and take some time to reflect on the wins of 2022, as I'm going to use this as some of the examples that I'm going to talk about. However, this concept is going to be really applied to whatever time frame that you want to. So we're going to talk about why it's important to celebrate the wins. We are going to break down a little bit of the process and how to do that. And we're going to talk about why it's so important. And again, I've done a lot of different reading and a lot of different research on the topic, but it's really interesting that it's a really simple concept. It's easy to do, but often underutilized. And so you can rely on me. I've done all the geek work, so to speak, behind the scenes, and I'm going to break it down, all of this research in a very simplistic way, to help you just understand and take away and walk away quickly and be able to do this. So we're going to jump in and dive in and do that. But first off, I'm going to start with a quick personal update about what's going on for me here. We, again, are heading into the holiday season at the back half of 2022 as I'm recording this. And we have a lot of fun things planned. As I've mentioned before in previous podcasts, I am currently in the process of building a house with my family. So we're in temporary housing. So we have really none of our normal Christmas stuff, with all of our stuff being in storage. So all of our decorations and all of the stockings and all that kind of stuff. So we're taking advantage of this opportunity to do some traveling. So our two kids that live with us will be joining us. And then one that lives in town, we're going to scoop up. And then another daughter's flying in from Ohio. And we have some special surprises planned for them. We are going to take them to a really nice dinner at the STK Steakhouse on Disney Springs. And then we are going to treat them to a Cirque du Soleil show at Disney Springs, Drawn to Life. And then we are going to go spend Christmas Eve at my parents' house. And so my parents are thrilled with having some of their grandkids that live, in state now and be able to visit with them. So we'll spend the day doing all the Christmas things at their house. So that's the plan. We'll let you know how this all plays out in 2023. But as of right now, that is our holiday plans. So I hope, again, you had a great holiday season. And I hope you're ready to dive into 2023. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about celebrating the wins of 2022. So as it's 2023 now, we've kind of settled down a bit after the holidays and kind of gotten back into the rhythm and routine of things. We might be back at work. We're starting to look forward to what the new year is going to bring for us. Let's take a moment. So before we rush into that and to the year head first, which we like to do, I know I'm guilty as charged, love to just kind of look forward and look towards the future. I'm going to encourage you as a leader to take a moment for reflection. We don't always get a chance to do this a lot of times, but it doesn't have to be a long stretch of time. It's really important to take a step back and look at what you, your team, your organization accomplished in the past year, right? And to really look at it and not just, high level kind of glaze over it. Like, yes, we did this, or yes, we did this. We do this in a lot of formats, but a way to really, really reflect on what you did, what your team did, what your company did, and not just in a way of looking at a spreadsheet or the bottom line. While important, it's important to go through and kind of recognize some of the big major milestones and accomplishments. Okay, so why? You're like, yeah. Okay, so again, done a lot of reading and research and got to know the science of it. I'm not going to break it down for you in the scientific way. I'm going to do it in a way that helps me, right? To take some complex things and to break it down into some really simple and easy to understand reasonings. So start with our brain. I like to talk a lot about our brain and what it's wired for. So I'm going to break this down. So our brain has a negativity bias. Not a bad thing. Again, I've talked about this before, where our brain is constantly scanning the horizon for something that may harm us, or looking for danger, right? This negativity bias, right? So like, what's going wrong? It's, again, instinctual. It's also kept us alive, right? So while like in the past, it may have been looking for predators in a lot of ways, in modern day, we don't necessarily recognize the fact that our brain is constantly looking for things out there that are not positive, right? So how do we overcome it? We have to constantly exercise and build the muscle of looking for, seeking out, and bringing to light things that we deem positive, or things that are going well, things we're grateful for, right? We've all heard of those gratitude practices and all that. I'll admit, I was not a believer, didn't really understand it, did some more research on it and put it into practice, and really have seen the difference in what it does, right? So what you're doing is you're retraining your brain. Again, that instinctual part of scanning the horizon for danger will always be a part of us, always be a part of our brain, and we want it to be. It's a good thing. It helps keep us safe and alive. But there is also that part of our brain we want to rewire and, again, build the muscle of looking for the positivity part of the experience we're going through here on Earth. So I talked about a little bit about this during my last podcast on the motivational triad. Okay. Our brain is seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, it's conserving energy. So when we do those things and we do them successfully, aka survive, we get dopamine hits from that, right? So there's a reward center in our brain. It lights up when we successfully survive. We get dopamine. Okay, we're basically, even though we're not necessarily cognitively thinking of it, this is what's happening as we continue to survive. We get rewarded for it. Okay. Now, when I say rewire, there's a way to start rewarding our brain for overriding these tendencies. So that's why it's important to pause, recognize hard work, because we're going against everything that our brain's wired to do, right? We're going to recognize the hard work that we're doing. We have overcome or sought out or worked through discomfort, and we've delayed pleasure. So when we're going through the workday, or we're going through our year, as I'm talking about in this podcast, looking at the time frame of our year, we overrode all those tendencies of the motivational triad, and we want to reward that. Okay. So by recognizing and by seeking out the positives, we're giving that dopamine hit that would normally be occurring from just doing those default actions. All right. So again, I'm going to make it even more simpler with an example, right? So a really simple example of maybe how you've seen people do this in practice, but not necessarily even recognize what was going on with it, is a to-do list. Okay. There's a lot of people out there. I have an executive that I work with that absolutely loves to-do lists, loves the art of like crossing the act or crossing the thing off of the list, creating that list and really accomplishing things on the list. And that act, right, of crossing the things off the list, that gives a dopamine hit. Again, I know it sounds wild, but the satisfaction of accomplishment and the simple act of being able to cross that off the list, basically it's telling the brain, like, we are going to give a reward for doing the hard thing and not necessarily giving the reward for giving into sitting on the couch and watching Netflix and just hanging out and eating whatever we want, staying in bed, and not doing the hard work, right? That's typically what's really satisfying and rewarding for our primitive brain, but for our prefrontal cortex, our executive functioning part of the brain, right? It planned to do these hard things, and now we need to reward our brain for doing those things, for overcoming all of those instinctual things that are way more comfortable, right, than doing the hard thing. So that's one example, crossing things off the to-do list. That's the reward. Okay, it can be that simple. Another example, and you might have heard things like habit trackers out there as something that helps people build new habits, right? There's this like formula for how many days you need to build a new habit. And then there's a lot of like tools out there to do it. Some of them look like calendars where you can cross off the day where you did the habit. There's little tracking mechanisms like where you can like X things off or like fill in little bubbles or whatever it is to show completion. It's extremely simplistic, but that satisfaction of showing physically another sense of accomplishment, again, starts to build new neural pathways of like overcoming that feeling and going through with the thing. Okay. Kids, you can see us do this in school systems or wherever where we reward good behavior. Sometimes it's through like the gold star or the sticker chart or whatever tokens that they may, gather as they continue to repeat good behavior. So I love adopting the method, or I love adopting the theory of the gold star. I give a lot of gold stars, my thing. And so for our teams, when we do this for ourselves and our teams, if we reward and recognize behaviors, it's this, again, while I know that there's some simplistic examples here, when we do that, it does the same thing. It reinforces what we value and what behavior we want to see repeated. So recognition and reward, it sends a really strong and powerful message and is a really sometimes underutilized management tool. And I think at times we think we have to dream up the new big thing to give to our employees and what reward or system or process. It doesn't have to be that complicated. It can be really, really simple in how you reward and recognize employees. And so I want to think about that, right? So I just want to put that, into your toolkit as something to think about how you want to reward and recognize not only your teams, but of course yourself. Okay. So let's pause there. So before we go any further, if you want to do any research on this, there is a ton of research. And if you look on to reward centers of the brain or dopamine or any of some of the research that's been done, there's a lot out there. So if you really want to dive deep, go for it. But otherwise, take my word for it. Let's take an opportunity to reflect back and know that it's going to absolutely make a big difference in your business performance and yourself as a leader. So let's talk about some questions to consider. So things that you could do to do this. So you can think about this through the lens of personal or professional, but it's really simple. You can answer the questions of what went well in 2022, or again, whatever time frame you're thinking of. What were the wins? What were you most proud of? What did you accomplish? What lessons did you learn? Maybe how you're different from this year or this time frame than you were last year. What were the most memorable parts of the year? What are you grateful for? And maybe even looking forward, what would you improve upon for this year? And as you start to answer those for yourself, I'm sure some will come really easily. Some you may have to reflect back and really dive deeper into your calendar or your notes and kind of dig deep for maybe what some of those other things are. But hopefully there's some things that really stand out for you and that you can pause and figure out a way to recognize yourself, your team, your organization for. Try it out. If you're wondering, what are some examples of your wins? I'll tell you. So 2022 is a big one for me. We sold our house in just a matter of days in January 2022. Got a great offer, way over asking. We packed up and moved our entire household to Florida in March. We had no idea where we were going to move permanently. And we found an amazing house to build on a dream lot in a dream spot. We got our kids settled into their new home. They had a big move, of course. So had a lot of new friends to make, a new school, new activities to get involved in. And I'll say all that went off pretty well. Not without some hiccups, of course, not without some moments of stress, but really successfully got ourselves completely moved to a new state. From a business standpoint, also a big move, right? Physically moved myself and my business to Florida, continued to run the business as this is all happening. I had a pretty big financial goal, but I tripled my revenue from last year, which for me was really exciting to do. I started coaching in a group format and a group setting to multiple leaders at a time, which was so fun to do and create new content for leaders. And a big goal that I had for this year was to start this podcast. And so a lot of wins for me in the past year. All right, now it's your turn. So again, try this for yourself, do it for your team, find a way to celebrate as a team. And before we dive into 2023 goals and get hyper-focused on our future and what we're creating, reflect back. And again, build new neural pathways where you rewarded yourself, where you have looked for the positive, shown some gratitude for what's gone well, so that you can go out and overcome some of those, again, parts of the motivational triad that we are going to ask ourselves to do as leaders over and over again as we go for these big 2023 goals. In our next episodes, we're going to talk about 2023 goals together and setting really massive goals and taking some massive action towards those goals. And how do we go about it? Okay, so if you want help with any of this, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach out to me directly, schedule a consultation call, and we can talk through all of this. I would love to hear from you and hear about your wins. And if you need help thinking of wins or figuring out ways to celebrate as a team, I can help you with that too. So my website, it's EliciaCowanCoaching.com, spelled ELISIAKEOWN, coaching.com. And we'd be so happy to help you with any of this. And again, stay tuned. We're going to talk about 2023 goals coming up next. Talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Executive Coaching Podcast with Alicia Cowan. If you're ready to have an executive coach who's ready to help you lead your team to success, then book an introductory call at aliciacowancoaching.com/call.